Okay, so let's talk a little bit about actually, childhood trauma as the topic of this event. So how can your model help people heal from childhood trauma? You kind of dove into it a little bit right there, but let's dive deeper. How can this be helpful for people?
Well, when you're hurt as a child or terrified or shamed brutally, uh, the, the parts of you that are the most sensitive, inner children, are the ones who are most hurt by those experiences. So they take on the burdens of terror or shame or emotional pain or things like that. And once that happens, not only do we kind of naturally want to get away from all of that, but our parents or our culture will tell us to let that go. Don't be so sensitive. Just get over it. Just move on. And as a result, we wind up, in my language, exiling not only the memory, sensations, emotions, and beliefs from the trauma, but the parts of us that were hurt the most by the trauma. Again, these young, inner, playful, before they got hurt, loving, curious, spontaneous inner children who now, just because they got hurt, get locked up inside of us. So they become what I call exile. And once you get a lot of exiles, especially as a child, the world becomes very dangerous, or you become very delicate and fragile because anything could trigger those parts. So they would take over, they would escape from their containment in an inner basement or cyst or cave, and they would overwhelm you with all these emotions that they're still carrying from trauma because they're still frozen in time back there. So to manage all of that, we all have parts whose job it is to control the outside world so nothing similar ever happens. And so even as adults, we will control how close we let anybody get to us, or how distant people who we depend on from us, or we'll try to control how we look so that we don't get rejected, or control our performance so we are perfect and never get, criticized. We'll try to control how much we feel. And some of these, what I call manager parts, have an ability to numb us if they want to, or keep us in our head so we don't feel too much. So these we call the managers. They're protective parts who originally weren't doing any of this kind of thing, but got forced into the role of containing these exiles and controlling the outside world. And we all have a bunch of those. And then, because those defenses don't always do the job, and exiles do get triggered, we all have parts that immediately will go into action to deal with this emergency. And often we'll do it in quite extreme ways. And they don't care about the collateral damage to your relationships or your body. They just need to get you away from those feelings right now. And some of them will do it with dissociating kind of things. Others will do it with more active rage kind of things. Others with substances and so on. So these we call firefighters. They're fighting the explosions of the exiles, flames of emotion. And they're trying to douse those flames with some substance or get you higher than the flames or distract you till they burn themselves out. And the problem is that generally the firefighters also cause a lot of external damage in your life, and people hate them and attack for them and so on, even though they're just desperately trying to keep you alive and keep you going. Mm-hmm. So that's the common structure, internal structure of people who've had a lot of childhood suffering. And the good news about that is none of these parts likes their role. They're all dying to get out of these roles. And as you access the client self and you have them begin to relate from that place to these parts, they will soften and we go to the protective, these managers or firefighters first, to get permission to go to the exiles. And then we go to the exiles, and it's very possible to heal those parts simply by listening to and feeling what happened to them. So witnessing what they went through from a place of compassion. So you would, Andy, you would see yourself as a girl being yelled at, and I would say, just stay with it and tell her to let you know what that was like until you really felt it and saw what happened and had it, sensations in your body. And the part said, this little girl said, now I think you get it. Now I think you really understand how bad it was. And then I would say to you, I'd like you to go into that scene and be with that little girl in the way she needed somebody. And so you would do that. You say, okay, I'm in there now. How are you being with her? I'm holding her. See if she wants to do anything else. She wants me to tell my mother not to yell at me anymore. Okay. So you would do that for her. And then at some point, we would take that little girl to a safe, comfortable place of her choice. And we could then unburden, unload the emotions and beliefs she got back there, because she would trust she never has to go back to that time. She'd be living in the present, or she'd be living in a nice fantasy place of her choice. And that is a healing of that little girl. And then we would invite in all the parts that have been protecting her to see that they don't need to do that anymore, and to help them into new roles. Because at that point, they're scared. Are you going to downsize me? Not needed. So we have to assure them there's another role waiting for them. So this process, as you kind of getting, is very compassion-based, and also is very non-pushy in the sense that before we ever get near these exiles, we wait till we get permission from the protectors, and we honor them for their service, even parts that have created a lot of havoc in the client's life or hurt other people. As you get to know them and you stop judging them, they'll tell their secret history of how they got forced into the role they're in and how much they hate having to do what they did, but felt like it had to happen to keep you safe. And as we honor them and get permission to do the exiles and heal the exiles, then they can take on new roles.
Awesome. Thank you. I love this. I'm taking it all in all the different ways that you're helping people with this. And it's just awesome. I'm thinking of all the different like characters in my mind, and I'm sure viewers are taking a look at that too. And it's a really like you said, compassion based kind of way of looking at the whole self, and how we can, like you said, be grateful for or honor those parts that have, even if they've created havoc, they were there for a reason. They were created that way for a reason based on your past. And I think that's a really loving way to look at it. So thank you.